Alright, well I finished wiring the portion of the box, the 120 portion of the box, or as an electrician would say, the line voltage portion of it. Basically I just started with the neutral. I found the neutral on the where the power plugs in. Ran that down to the terminal board here, jumpered it back here, and then ran two wires out to the neutral connections on the two power supplies. Then I ran the ground. Of course, ground is usually supposed to be green, but didn't have green. I just have to put some green tape on. It was just the ground on mine here. It has a G on there. So I took that down. I scraped some of the paint off underneath this screw. I drilled a hole, put a screw through it, stripped the paint under there, and then ran to here. On this I just looped through. I ran it to this power supply and then ran it over to this power supply. And then on the hot, what we call the hot or the black, there's a fuse in here. So when the power comes in, there's already a jumper built into this. So basically on the line coming out of the fuse, I then jumpered that down to the little switch, because there's a little switch on the back here. And from the other side of the switch I came down, ran to the terminal block. I'm actually going to be adding I haven't connected this, bolted it down yet. I'm actually going to stick another switch in the front over here. So what I've done is I've come to here and I've basically the switch wires will come into here. So when it'll go out to the switch, come back to here, and that will come to these, and I jumpered over to these two, and these two wires here then go to the power or the hot on both of the power supplies. And that's basically it. Of course, for the switch that I have to add, that's that portion of it. And I'm gonna start on the other wiring on it. Just so you could see this, where the power plugs, and so you can see this a little better. It may not have been in full view on there, but yeah, this is where the ground is. This is where the neutral is, and the jumper is right here. That little plate right there jumpers to the fuse, and this is the fuse. Oops. This is coming back out of the fuse, and that is jumpered down here to the switch, and here I have it coming up down here. Here I have it coming back down out of the switch down to the terminal block here. And here's what that's where the power comes in. The fuse block is in the middle there. It doesn't have a fuse, and the switch is down below there. Alright, I finished running the wires of the power to my drivers. In my particular case, it's 36 volts. Different setups could have different voltages, 48 or whatever. Basically, I just put a terminal block down here, ran power from the power supply over here, positive and negative, and ran them into the two terminal blocks here, put some jumpers, and then just ran the different the negatives and the positives to the corresponding terminals over here. And so the 36 volts on mine is done, and on to the next step. Alright, I got the first part of my 5 volt wiring done. I got I was going to use the same wire I was using before, but it doesn't fit out in the breakout board over here, so I ended up going with actually these are fluorescent ballast wires. I change ballast all the time, so I have a bunch of extra ballast wires. So I'm using blue for negative or ground, and red, of course, for positive. So I just have the negative going to the ground terminal over here, the second one in, and then I've got the positive 5 volt. This is 5 volt, yeah. Coming here, and I just loop these all together with one continuous wire. I just stripped the wire insulation back and just looped it all as one wire. And then I've got one, of course, going over to the board here, the 5 volt positive, which is the first terminal. And then, of course, the 5 volts to each of these, which goes to the first terminal from the end, and it also loops over, jumpers over to the third terminal, and that's done 3 times. So that's the initial part of the 5 volts. I still have all the wires to run out of all these screws here, which is basically the control wires from the breakout board telling these what to do, basically. So I'm going to do those next. Alright, I got the rest of the 5 volt wiring. I believe it's 5 volts. Anyways, the control wires coming out of the breakout board over here. I got all those run to the drivers here. It's basically a red and a blue to each one of these. So the first 2, red and the blue, come to here. The red goes to the second terminal in, and the blue goes to the 4th terminal in, and that just repeats over and over again as you go through them. I'm not doing the A. I just got the X, Y, and Z here, and that's it. Just so you know, you can actually pull these things off like this and kind of pre-wire them like that, and then stick them back in if you can't reach them. You know, sometimes the wire just gets in the way trying to get the you know, undoing the screws and tightening the screws. So alright, and that does it for that. Now on to the next part. Just to clarify the colors on these coming out of the board, the diagram that I have shows it as green and red, but basically it's just step negative and dir negative, directed negative. So I don't know if the colors probably don't really matter that much. They're just control wires. I just happen to use red as the step negative and used blue as the direction negative. Alright. I finished the wiring for the let me see, the ground. Basically I just see if I'm zoomed in or not. Let me zoom in a little better. There we go. Okay. What I did is I only used this section of this for this wiring over here. So basically I took the ground and connected to these 4 here, basically looping them, and from there I ran the ground back around here over to the E-stop button right here, and then from the E-stop button back over to right here, which is the 3rd terminal in there. So basically I ran the ground wire, which is this wire right here, out of the terminal here onto the terminal strip and just looped it, and then ran this other blue wire right here over to the test button which is this wire right here. And I ran this red wire, which is the other wire going to the e-stop button right there, back to there, the red one right there. So kind of hard to do showing it like this, but anyways, that part's all done. I can't do the rest of it. These right here, because, well, I'm not going to do the A because I don't have an A right now. Basically, these right here are going to be through the aviation plugs. Those are going to the limit switches. So once I get the aviation plugs done, then I'll be able to finish up that wiring. Basically, 3 of the wires, one of each of the wires from the aviation plugs from the limit switches will go into these 3, and the other 3 wires, one from each of these, will go into those 3 right there. And all that leaves left is wiring the motors. I got the holes right there. You got the X, Y, and Z. Basically, the wires from these will go into these terminals right here, and that will pretty much complete the wiring of this box, other than the switch, of course, that I'm gonna add over here. I've got my e-stop button, and I'll have a switch over there, and I think that'll pretty much finish up the wiring of this control box. I gotta get a fuse, of course, for this, because this didn't come with the fuse. And I guess that's it. Alright, well, I finished the wiring for, I put the on-off switch on button. I actually got that from McMaster Car. I figured I'm going to be using this a lot, so I figured I'd get a decent one. I think this was like 20 bucks. There's the wiring there. It just goes back behind there, and I've got that wired in right here. So the power comes in, goes through here, goes over to the switch, and then comes back from the switch, and then goes to here, which then loops through here and basically feeds the 2 power supplies. Okay, so that portion of it is done. I've actually done the aviation plugs for the motors. You see that back here. I got all that wired in. I did the soldering. I didn't video the soldering because I'm really just learning to solder this kind of stuff. So anyway, so that basically just goes over to the drivers right here. The drivers are actually blue, red, green, and black, but the wire that I'm using is actually just a speaker wire from Home Depot. So yeah, so the white is actually the blue. So that's just wire just like that. Black, green. It's a number. I used the numbering on the aviation plugs. I went from blue or white is 1, red is 2, green is 3, and black is 4. So I did that for all of these, and those just wire into steppers for the 3 axes. And I actually have already have it hooked up, but and I did the aviation plugs. I think a lot of people use heat shrink, but I didn't have any. I just used electrical tape, but heat shrink is probably better. And that's wired to the motors over here. I just took the other end and basically crimped them together. You can see the blue is actually to the white, see. I staggered them like this so they could all fit within this tube. I'm not sure exactly how I'm gonna fit this on. As you can see, there's just kind of hanging here, so I don't know, maybe I'll super glue it on or something, I don't know. But alright, so that's that portion of it. So that finishes the wiring to the stepper motors. Since I seem to have gotten a little better at the soldering part of this, I figured I'd show a little bit of it. Anyways, so I've got the aviation plug, the part that goes on the inside of the box. I've got one of these little soldering clamp deals. And then I've got one alligator clip holding the wire and one holding the aviation plug. I don't know, this seems to be the thing that seems to matter the most, I guess, is getting everything hot enough. When I was first doing it, it was just balling up. Seems to me the videos I was watching were they were just putting it on there and soldering it right away, and I tried that, and I don't know, it didn't seem to work very well. So what I started doing was just making sure it's hot enough. It's kind of like a sweating pipe or joining copper water pipe together. With that, you just heat it up and you feed the solder in, and it's just drawn right into it by the heat. But if you don't get everything hot, it'll just ball up and it won't connect to all of it. So I'm just going to make sure I heat it up enough, and then got my magnifying glasses on here. See, that just kind of flowed right in and connected. Before, it wasn't connecting to the actual metal piece. I just had a bunch of it on the copper. So I said I'm not a professional at this, but seem to be getting a little better. Alright, I got that one. I'm just cutting short pieces. Again, this is just ballast wire. So once that cools down a little bit, I tried sticking two in there, but it just doesn't hold, so I'm just taking that one out and sticking the next one in there. Make sure it's in far enough. Alright, that's that one. Wait a few seconds for it to cool down. And then, oops, got to take the lock nut off. And the washer, right? And this, over here. Raise it up. See what I'm doing here. And see, I've already got two of them in there. I'm going to put the last one in, the X. Oh, no, I did the X and Y, now I'm doing the Z. So, take these off. And put this through like this, and lock nut, then, oops, just use this, tighten it up. Better to use a wrench, but alright. Okay, now I'll connect those wires and I'll show you what I did in there. Okay, so I thought I'd just show you all of this portion of the wiring. So like I said before, I ran one of each of the blue out of this, which is all connected together. And that goes to one of each of those. And then from back out of those goes down to the first 3 screws right there, 1, 2, 3, which is just like this diagram here. So these 3 greens right here are actually these 3 blues. And then, which then eventually goes back to the board. You got the blue coming out that hits there, and then it goes to the e-stop, loops to all these, and goes out, which is just like this right here coming out. This right here is basically that strip. And you get all the greens, which are, I have blues. And then these reds right here, and focus in there, is those 3 reds right there. Oh, those 3 reds right there, and those are all going into here to the, you can see it right there, 11, 12, and 13. Alright, so that's the limit switch portion of the wiring diagram. Alright. Okay, I thought I'd show you wiring this portion of the aviation plug, the one that goes on the wire. You can see that? Yeah. Anyways, there's a teeny tiny little screw. You're going to need it's actually Phillips, but I'm using a flathead, but a really small one, small enough to get in there. But really teeny tiny screw right there. You got to take that and be really careful not to lose it because it's really, really small. And then basically that just pulls off. And this portion of it here, you're going to want to stick that over your wire before you start soldering. Otherwise, you're going to have to take it apart or something. But, alright, just feed that down on it going this direction. And then we have to solder. I gotta strip this back, but not too much because this thing has to be able to clamp. You don't want, you know, regular wire, the wire sticking out the end. You know, you don't want to see the wire, so I'm just gonna strip it back enough and then solder this on to these 2 terminals here, and then put this back together. The clamp on here is a lot bigger than the wire, so I'll probably, I know some people put some heat shrink on there. I'm just going to use some electrical tape. You gotta undo the 2 screws on here too to be able to clamp it down on it. So alright, I'll get this set up and solder this, and I'll show you putting it back together. Okay, I got it soldered on. You can see that, see, I only have this a short bit on there. When you slide it over, you don't have any of this portion of the wire sticking out. So, but it's really loose, so I'm actually gonna wrap it in some electrical tape. Of course, I know there's better things to wrap it with, but
I don't have any of that stuff, so in the heat shrink, so just gonna put enough on there to make it fat enough to grip over there. That should work. I'll just take these set screws off and slide it down and clamp it back down and put that tiny little screw down, and this portion will be done, and I'll do the other two, and that should be the end of it, right? And then we'll be on to setting up Mach 3 with the limit switches and the soft limits and all that kind of stuff, right? But that's going to be on a different video, right?